can be complete.
It's gonna take a little while.
That's good.
And he's been tied up with the audit report, and now we'll start working on it a little more, have more time to work on it. We'll get there. Any questions?
Thank you, Kevin, for bringing this before us.
Not a problem, thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is...
We have to vote on that.
Nope, we don't.
Just had to report it.
Report.
It falls within our policy.
Yep, by
Oh,
policy,
it
it gets reported to us.
Action. Was
Oh,
It said, sorry, in
sorry,
the
that
earlier
was-
version, that was a last second change.
Oh,
Because
okay.
there was a realization we didn't need
Okay.
an action,
Oh,
so that
sorry.
just got changed today when that realization was made.
Okay.
Next item, item 9C, the budget. We have an enrollment report in front of you. It looks like our numbers are matching projections quite well. Anything you want to add there, Colleen? If not, unless there's any questions. Looks like enrollment is doing fine within the district. Next item is the financial report. You have that in front of you. Without any questions on that, we'll move on to gifts and donations. We have two of them. One from the Faribault Booster Club for $11,097.52. Donation for third fitness center equipment order. So as they continue to add equipment, I think we can expect to see some more of those. If you have not been in the new fitness center, it looks fantastic. Nice green on everything with Faribault Fs on everything. It's a first-class facility that we can be proud to have. Second donation from the Faribault JV dance team in the amount of $1,600. Donation to provide an assistant JV coach. On behalf of the school board, as always, we appreciate greatly when members of the community step forward to work on these items for us. So we thank both of these groups sincerely for those donations. Any further discussion on behalf of the board? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. All right, this next item on the agenda came out of a comment made by Mr. Robichaud at the last meeting as a suggestion that he thought we should have a discussion on, and we could decide if we want to take any action on this item tonight. But it was a suggestion that is one small cost-saving measure for the district, that board members could accept some of the personal responsibility, some of the financial responsibility for paying for expenses incurred during school board activities, and particularly conferences. We have these MSBA conferences that we go to. The suggestion, in fact, was that perhaps the district could pay for the fees to go to these conferences, but all transportation fees and fees associated with staying in hotels and meals and such things, that board members would, in light of the financial times, accept those expenses on their personal account. These are important things for us to do. It would be standard practice for districts to pay for these for board members in the same way that we pay for professional development for other staff members, and so this would be out of the ordinary for a district to take this action. But Jerry suggested it is something we may want to consider to show good faith in trying to do our own small part to account for some expenses inside the district. So any further questions or comments? I think we could do this either as on our honor if we wanted to do something and express that we feel it's a good idea, or in fact we could take an action to override the policy. There is a policy in place that accounts for the district to pay for these expenses, and so if we wanted to, we could take an action to override that policy for a short period of time.
Can I just speak to that a little bit?
Please do.
And I know it's a cost savings, but I just want the board to think about it beforehand. You know, we do some investing to build, and we're trying to build trust, obviously, on this board. And sometimes relationship building is done very well at the MSBA conference. I also, and I'm just a little leery about when we decide to make this cost cut, which is fine. It does save the district dollars, but I wonder how much the trust ruins our board, and when we look forward in the future, whether or not that's more expensive than what we're looking at for saving a few bucks. The MSBA offers some great training. They offer workshops for you guys when you go up there. It's a good time for you guys to visit and talk. It's a nice team building piece, and it's just my own personal opinion. You'll have to make that decision on your own. But I think the few dollars that you spend on that goes a long ways. And I just think it's a very constructive and a very good place for the board to be trained and learn about cutting edge items that occur and the financial status and everything else. There's a lot of good things that occur at these MSBA conferences.
Well, I certainly wouldn't want it to apply to our newest board member, because I know they have to take some special training the first year. And
Yeah.
I think we should postpone this until we have Jerry back here if he wants to talk about it. I'm certainly thinking we can do it voluntarily without commanding it, but I would like to move that we table it to our next meeting.
Okay, so we have a motion to table this item to the next meeting. Is there a second for that motion?
Do we really need to table it since it's just a discussion? Can we just
It is
now
just
put
a
it
discussion.
Just a
on,
discussion, it's not a vote.
just put it on as
Oh.
another agenda item?
That's fine with me. I just thought maybe that you were thinking that you wanted,
Well, the board certainly can take actions on things, but I was
can
not
we talk
suggesting
about
we
it at
should.
the work session?
Yeah, certainly before we take an action, perhaps.
I'd
more
say we put
discussion.
it on the agenda at the work session, then, and I'll withdraw my motion to table it, since it doesn't have a second anyway.
Right. Sure, I think we absolutely can table that to the work session. I'll say personally, I've been paying for my own expenses the last few times I've attended MSBA things. I think a number of us have in fact done that already. I think it's a good idea. My caution, and I think it addresses Mr. Sesker's caution as well, is that this is all fine and good as long as board members still feel like they should go to these items, which I think are important training. I would be concerned if there was a board member who did not feel they could afford this training, that they might skip this training because they can't afford it. I don't know if that's true of any current board member. I know it's been true of past board members, and I don't want to speak towards future board members. So I don't want to put anything in place that would keep somebody who financially simply could not afford these things from being a board member and attending these activities. Although I think it's a wonderful idea, and as I said, I've been doing it now for a number of board meetings and plan to continue doing so personally, and I know others have as well. With that, any further discussion before we, again, bring this up at a work session?
I think the January meeting is the most important. I know I personally cut out the August meeting the last 2 years. I've not gone to, was it Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center?
Brooklyn.
So I
Yeah.
give, so I just,
I would hate for anybody not to go to the January meeting.
right,
because of
that's
expenses.
more valuable, I
Absolutely.
believe.
Yes.
Mhm. At the same time, if board members can step forward and help with those expenses, I think it's a wonderful thing if they can do so. So we'll discuss this further at the work session with Jerry here to comment on that. And for now, maybe we'll leave it with that, unless there's further comments. Okay. Next item on the agenda, approve additional English learner staff. It's an action item.
Yeah, and I can kind of start the discussion for Angela as she's getting ready. And, we're going through all these different cuts and increases and not increases, but decreases in various programs. And now you see a proposal to actually have additional English language learners on the docket. We've probably held off on this about as long as we possibly could to address. It does improve the class size a little bit, but more importantly, it helps us address some of the needs of our English language learners. And on top of that, this is extra dollars to a certain extent that we have as a result of this specific population that we could actually funnel based on our accounts now in October for some of these programs, and Colleen and Angela can probably address those things. So I just want to prep you that we want to try to make it break even. We're not trying to spend money out of the general fund, but we also want to be able to address the needs, just like a lot of these people were talking about in the audience that I'm going to talk about here in a little bit too. So with that, Angela.
Thanks. So I had do we have a document camera somewhere here or no? Yeah, and you've got that, okay. We have ever-changing enrollment with our EL population. And a couple years ago, the district was charged to put in systematic and sustainable curriculum to build our core, and we've done that. We have the systematic piece in place of our teaching and our intervention time. The sustainability changes a little bit now and then depending on the needs of our students, particularly our EL students, and that's what I'm here to talk to you about tonight. I was thinking, when I was thinking about coming here and talk to you tonight, the first thing that I thought of is when I had the data work session with you guys at the district office, and we talked a little bit about the numbers that you see on the bottom of this page that indicate the MMR and the focus rating. And I think actually, Richard, you were the one who said, what's going on at Lincoln? What makes the difference with Lincoln, and why are their numbers significantly better in the focus rating than at Jefferson and Roosevelt? They outperformed Jefferson and Roosevelt somewhat because of achievement gap reduction, but more so in their focused proficiency. So that would be proficiency of students in the subgroup areas. So it would be looking at how did our Hispanic student proficiency compared to our non-Hispanic students? How did our free and reduced lunch students do in comparison to our not free and reduced lunch students? The other thing that we found when we were looking at Lincoln's success was that they have a better student-teacher ratio in regard to their EL population. So knowing that, we kind of looked through the numbers, the counts of these EL students to see where we were at. We're requesting the addition of 2 2.0 full-time equivalents, which would be 1.5 teachers and a 0.5 para. We believe that the request would support all students, not just EL students. The reason for that would be that when we add EL staff, it allows the EL staff to work more closely with the EL students, allowing the general ed teacher to service the needs of the rest of the students in the classroom. When the principals and I first met and started talking about this, we talked about a lot of things that kind of play into figuring out the number of EL students and the need of our EL students. We talked about how one EL student doesn't equal another EL student. So students, depending on the time they've been in the country, previous schooling that they may have, language skills that are used at home, depending on those types of things, different EL students have different needs. And so we weighted the value for each EL student based on their current proficiency level to see how big of a difference that made. And so I have a couple things here on the sheet that I'd like you to take a look at. The first is the box in the middle talking about the ethnicity of ELs. And you can see, based on the numbers that are here, that it varies quite a bit. So for example, at Jefferson, their highest EL population is in their Somali students, and they actually have 86 Somali students at this time. Roosevelt, their highest count is 80% of their EL population is Hispanic, 153 Hispanic students at Roosevelt. And these are not just Hispanic students, but Hispanic students who have indicated that their home language is something other than English. And that's true for all of our ELs. So then in the bottom right corner, you see kind of how we weighted the value for each of these students. The EL students we have one of 2 tests on file for them right now. We either have the Access for ELs assessment that they took at the end of the school year last year, and we receive scores back for them in areas of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. And the score for those is a scale from 1 to 6. And so you can see we have the 1 to 6 broken down here. And then kindergartners, are a little bit different in the way that we consider the service that we provide to them, because a lot of kindergartners have emergent literacy skills, just like our new ELs have, and so a lot of times it's better for our kindergarten ELs to be in the kindergarten classroom, so it requires less service with just EL groups outside of the classroom to meet their needs. So on that weighting, what you see, a 1.0 would be the lowest level, there is no 0. A 1.0 would be the lowest, and that lowest rating would be indicative of a student who has no English proficiency at all, reading, writing, listening, or speaking. And so a lot of times our newcomers have that kind of a score when they first arrive. And then all the way to the other end of the spectrum, the 5.6 to 6.0 would be students that we would likely be exiting, and we might have them on indirect service just to kind of keep an eye on them for a year and communicate with their classroom teacher, but they're getting virtually no service at this point. So now on the top right, when you look at the enrollment, you can see the count. So for example, at Jefferson, they have 155 ELs, but when we applied that weighting formula to them, the weight was 183.5. And then you can see how that transfers to the other buildings also. It altered our interpretation in some ways, but I also think that it just solidified our belief in other ways, which was that some of the students that have higher need definitely have the higher weight, but when we look at the whole picture, what we could tell by the numbers was that there was a higher need at Roosevelt and at Jefferson than what they were being staffed for. And so initially we planned to come and ask for 2 full-time equivalencies for teachers, and then talking with Brad about the situation at Jefferson, we really felt like we could meet the needs of the students there with just a 0.5 teacher in that building, but also at a 0.5 Somali cultural liaison, or no, para, but a Somali speaking para, so that that person could work with students in the classroom, but also to help out with some of our communication issues that we have. Right now they have a Somali liaison in the building about half the time, and so this person would be strategically scheduled the other half of the time, so that they would always have somebody in the building to address the needs of Somali families and students with severe language barriers when they first enter the building. I guess, do you guys have anything that you want to add?
I was thinking if they have a question, we can respond to questions.
All right.
Are more paras available that are able to speak the language of the learners?
We actually do have a couple parent volunteers at Jefferson right now that our cultural liaison thinks would be a good fit in that type of a position. So we do feel like it's possible to fill that position with somebody that would be qualified. As far as the financial piece of this, maybe I could have Colleen talk to you first, and then any questions you have, we could answer those. That'd be okay?
Please, Colleen.
One of the things that you heard Kim talk about when she did the audit report is how important it is to have a fund balance. And here's one of the reasons why it is important to have a fund balance. As things like this come up, you have to be able to react to those to meet the educational needs of our students. So it's not always about finances. It is also about meeting the needs of the kids that we have. And we can't always plan to know how many EL students are going to arrive in our town and need educational services. So as we talk about what they would like to do for the remainder of this year, adding the 1.5 teaching staff and the 0.5 paraprofessional, figuring that wouldn't happen probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're looking at about 2/3 of the cost for the remainder of the year, which is going to be somewhere between $60,000 and $72,000 for those, excuse me, 2.0 positions, FT positions. And that would have to come out of our fund balance. Obviously, we don't have that built into the budget. And these are new students. But our enrollment projections are right in line, our enrollments are right in line with our projections, so there really isn't any additional revenue there. In looking forward to next year, we feel that we can fund these with some additional compensatory revenue that we have not yet finalized. That won't be finalized for about another month. As we look at our free and reduced counts, they are increasing in our district. We were at about 50% free and reduced last year. Early numbers are looking that we're going to jump up to about 54% free and reduced, and that does provide us with some additional revenue. in projecting the budget for 13-14, we assumed that that would remain the same. So we do have a little bit of an increase there, and I'm always a little bit hesitant to pull out one piece of revenue and say that that's increasing because there are many other pieces that could go up or down. But this is an area that we know we probably will have an increase in, so we could fund these positions with that revenue for next year. And again, take a look at it then as we start looking at the budget for 14-15. And I would recommend that we look at this EL population every year because it does seem to be a little bit in a state of flux. So it is something that we do want to take a look at every year and look at the needs for that. In looking at a full year cost, that would be somewhere between 90 and 108,000. And that would be fully covered by the increase in compensatory as it sits right now. Again, we've got about another month before we have that final, but we're talking about next year, so we could make some program adjustments as we know that number more.
Between 90 and what?
108. And the variation is insurance, whether someone takes single or family insurance, and depending on if you're in the teacher contract or the para contract, that swing can be anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000, and that's why there's a difference there. And of course, I'm always on the high side, so Angie assures me we can probably find a first-year teacher. Matter of fact, they had some pretty good applicants
We
last
did
year.
have some applicants right at
Yes.
the end of the year for a position at Jefferson, and we
Try
were,
to talk on the mic.
oh, sorry. We were a little apprehensive about whether or not we would get a good pool of applicants at the very beginning of the school year, so it was late August when we hired for a position for Jefferson, and we had 3 or 4 candidates that we actually thought would be decent and qualified and capable of doing a nice job at Jefferson. So we hired one of them, which means we'd still have 3 people out there. Also, this time of year, it's end of a semester, so newly licensed candidates will be available for us to target.
Are there any grants available to help?
Not that we're aware of at this time. That doesn't mean that there couldn't be something down the road, but again, typically grants don't fund staffing. So it's difficult to find grants that will fund staff.
Do I understand that you're predicting or hoping for increased compensatory aid that might pay for these positions at some point in the future?
In 13-14, next
Okay.
school year, because
So-
compensatory is always finalized in the fall for the next school year.
Alright.
So
So-
when fall reporting is finalized in December, we will know that number for sure.
So if these positions were approved now, that would require us to dip into the reserve fund to pay for it from now until the end of the school year, and then
Correct.
hopefully the same expenses would be picked up by compensatory aid in the fall for the next year.
That's-
Am I understanding that
That
process?
is correct. So we're telling you that we'd like, or asking for these positions to continue for the remainder of this year and all of next year. Beyond that, we would want to take another look at the needs of the
I
kids.
understand.
And again, look at our budget, and that's just good planning to look at that every year, so.
So if these positions were to continue next year, and if the compensatory evolves as you foresee it,
Yes,
it would not be twice dipping into the reserve account to
Correct.
fund these. It would be just this school year and then move into another funding source for the next school year and then to be re-examined at that point.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. With just one little caveat, the legislators haven't even started yet, so
I understand.
provided there's no pulling out of the rug of funding, I would like to just reserve an option to look at it in the spring in case something really devastating happens with general education aid and they
understand.
decrease it, then we'd have to rethink it. But at this point, the projections were for everything to stay the same, no increase, no decrease. If that changes, then we'd want to relook at it. But compensatory will be a known factor in about another month.
But not available until the fall of 2013.
Correct.
Thank you.
Other questions from the board?
There's no questions, I've got any comment?
Yeah, please.
I'd just like to say that working with Angie it's been awesome, and I'll tell you why. She's been able to take a lot of data and put it together for us, to make some really good, meaningful decisions with that. So I would like to thank her, and I'd also like to point out that we have some ESL staff in here, and they take it pretty seriously. They want to do a really great job. And I think bringing this ratio of students down to the level that we're asking for will help us tremendously. So I thank you for your consideration this evening.
If you want to look back at this document just for a minute, I'll address that student to teacher ratio. In the first column where you see the green, the darker green numbers highlighted, what that tells us is based on where we're at right now, each of the buildings have 4.0 FTEs of EL instruction. And so at Jefferson, their ratio, student to teacher ratio is 38.8 to 1, so about 39 students for each teacher. At Lincoln, about 32, and at Roosevelt, about 48 students to 1 teacher. So you can see there's quite a discrepancy there in the time and attention, basically, that our EL students are receiving from the staff, because they're spread a lot more thin at Roosevelt. If we do take on the 1.5, the blue column tells you what those new weights will be. So 34 at Jefferson and 38 at Roosevelt. And that's just based on the count. Whether the weight thing makes sense or not, you can see that either way, that it puts it more in balance with what Lincoln is experiencing at this time.
Maybe I can ask Terry and Brad, in your experience, thinking long-term financial pieces with regard to trying to educate these kids early, is there, is it true that there's a financial benefit if we get a hold of these kids early and teach them at a younger age? It could save us some dollars in the future. Have you anecdotally or researched?
Money-wise, I can't necessarily speak directly to it, but I think one of the things to keep in mind is that we have, I think as a district, a couple of things. One, we now speak much clearer in the elementary and with one voice. So I'm thoughtful of what the needs are at Lincoln and the needs are at Jefferson, not only at Roosevelt. And also with the development of the literacy program we have in our district, the manner in which we're scaffolding or layering the services to our kids are benefiting all students. We are asking for this specifically to the ELs, because this is that next layer of intervention that will be provided, and kind of that double dip, that extra boost that these kids need. But the way that we've structured the Leaders Workshop model in literacy is that you are providing the inclusion model so that these staff are directly working with those kids, but are also available to free up that mainstream teacher to give more time and attention to the other students as well. So, and I think that the question or the comment that was made about what is it at Lincoln, I think that historically over the last decade there has been the ratio has been different there, and so with the same staffing, and I think that you can't say an actual cause of effect of that, but I think it's not much of a jump to say that we believe that over time that has really made a big benefit to them, and I think those showing up on their data to share that across the district.
Is this more important than an orchestra program?
Oh, there's another question.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind, these are compensatory dollars, so that makes it a little bit more difficult. The appropriate use for the compensatory dollars is on the free and reduced, the EL programs, and those types of programs. Quite honestly, the orchestral program, and I'll talk a little bit about that later too, would be funded from just the general education fund, and the only way you can supplement that is either by a local levy or by state aid. So there's really not a lot of other things that you can shift around in order to supplement orchestra.
Are we, I've heard the term particularly related to special ed under the maintenance of effort requirement. Is
I don't
this
think,
EL program
I don't think so.
under this, under
Not
any
as
similar
Not as strict
mandate?
accountability measures as the special ed would be.
There's no financial maintenance of effort, though, I don't believe. I think that's only special education.
Okay,
And Colleen can,
No, that's just special ed, but I do want to clarify, compensatory dollars are specifically in statute. And while there are a list of probably 20 things that you can spend compensatory on, Todd's completely right. You can't spend this on orchestra. You can't spend it on regular education in any fashion. If you don't spend this money in the manner in which the law intended it, you have to reserve it for future costs in that area.
Mhm.
So, and serving English language learners is specifically mentioned in the law. So this is a perfect use of additional compensatory dollars.
And I think that box in the upper left kind of shows that it's been consistently growing. It's not like a bubble, a small bubble that next year, I mean, you can never speak to, what's gonna happen in the future. But with 5 years of data, they're showing there is a consistent growth in this area within our district. And, it's our responsibility to advocate, for all our students. This is a particular group right now that, we're feeling, needs our attention specifically. The staff right now, they're tapped out, they were spread as thin as possible. I think they're doing a wonderful job. The research and above is to providing service. I think we're right on, and I think we've done a great job looking at, research-based models and of doing things. And that inclusion is a great model, but some of these kids, it's not enough. They need that next double dip, they need that next boost, and that's a direct, unique, lower ratio of direct service.
Let me just ask for some clarification. I'm not sure, based upon what I'm looking at here, exactly where the 2.0 would go. It sort of looks like an increase of 0.5 at Jefferson and Roosevelt, and so I'm not sure.
It would be a 1.0 FTE teacher at Roosevelt, and then a 0.5 FTE teacher at Jefferson, and a 0.5 para at Jefferson. So it'd be 1.0 in each building, but it would be part para, part teacher at Jefferson.
I see. Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Further consideration by the board on this matter? Thoughts?
What do we need here? Approval?
Yes, we do need a motion and approval if the board so chooses.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of this proposal.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the addition of 2.0 FTE, 1.5 FTE of EL teachers, and 0.5 FTE and a paraprofessional in the role of serving in an EL capacity. Any further discussion?
I just think it's important to try to communicate as best we can why we have money for this, and we don't have money for some of the other things.
It's one of the challenges is, as a school district, we have many different pots of money, and they are not free to flow wherever we may choose. There's a pot of money here, but I think it's also not just to simply say we're spending this money because we have it in a pot of money, we need to spend it, but it's for a need that's very important for our students as well. Both of those things are true at the same time.
But while the compensatory money that should be available in the fall of 2013 is something very appropriate and very targeted, and that's exactly the kind of thing it should be spent on. For the remainder of this year, we're going to have to dip into our reserve fund, which is not designated and which could go to support any of a number of other programs, of which a huge list is on our reduction plan. So I have, while I have no problem with spending compensatory money to support that program, I do have a problem with dipping into our limited reserve fund that we need to maintain for all the reasons that our auditor spoke to. So I have a concern about dipping into that fund even for the remainder of the year, despite the obvious need, and I'm not questioning what you're saying about it affecting all of our students. We simply don't have the funds to provide all we need for all of our students.
Can I tell you, add one little nugget maybe? If we're able to do this, as Mr. Sesker was talking about, sorry about that, we can prevent, and I feel confident in this, that we can prevent kids from having to get into special education services because we will be able to, like Terry says, double dip, front end load this, get kids proficient reading and math by 3rd grade so that we don't have to go a special ed route. And I think in the end, we'll save money.
further comments on this item before we vote? Okay, hearing none, do we need a roll call on this? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, appreciate it.
Next, on the agenda, other committee reports, no report from Insurance Committee or Wellness Committee, Community Ed report, Anne Marie, no report, you said that earlier, okay. Other matters, item number 11, approve school board member appointment to Community Ed Advisory Council. I have been informed we have 2 board members interested in being appointed to that, Mr. Robichaud and Mr. Olson. At this time, I'm going to appoint Mr. Robichaud to that committee. So he'll be serving on that committee of Community Ed. Next on the agenda, item 11D. We have a number of these. Ken, if you want to come forward.
That's an action item, I believe, right?
What's an action item?
We have it listed as an action.
11.
It's listed as an action, but that's approval or appointment to
Do we do?
committees has never been voted on.
Oh, in January, and I just don't
I've
remember.
never even voted on it in January.
Oh, okay, I didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't,
Okay.
my fault.
Next on the agenda, we have a number of cooperative sponsorships that need to be dissolved and then reapproved. So Ken, if you want to tell us about these.
Okay, all 3 of these co-ops are situations where we are adding schools to present co-ops. In every case, the State High School League requires us to first dissolve the present co-op and then approve the new co-op. So in front of you, you have one for wrestling, where MSAD would like to be added to the present wrestling cooperative sponsorship. You have one for boys swimming. Again, MSAD would like to be added to the boys swimming cooperative sponsorship. In both cases, they have young men who would like to participate on these teams. And because of the change that the State High School League approved earlier this year, in neither case does that change our overall student population, because MSAD will no longer be counted against us when we add them to a cooperative sponsorship. And then the third one is gymnastics, where Shattuck St. Mary's has 3 young ladies who would like to participate on our gymnastics program. They are local residents, and so they have asked to be added to that co-op. In that case, their student population will be added to it, but we are already competing at the AA level in gymnastics, so this would not change our level of competition.
Is there any reason, is there any reason we can't take all of these items in one action?
It's not a resolution, right, so I don't think there's a resolution for it, so I think you can do it all in
So
one
we
shot.
could do this all in one action. Any further, I'm gonna suggest that maybe we do so on all these items, but any questions or comments on these items before we do so, before we act on them? Okay, the chair will entertain a motion to approve items 11, D, E, F, G, H, I. I'll read those out loud. Approve the dissolution of cooperative sponsorship for the 2012-2013 wrestling. Approve the application for cooperative sponsorship 2012-2013 wrestling. Item F, approve dissolution of cooperative sponsorship 2012-2013 boys swimming. Approve application for cooperative sponsorship 2012-2013 boys swimming. Approve the dissolution of cooperative sponsorship 2012-2013 girls gymnastics. And finally, approve the application for cooperative sponsorship for the 2012-2013 girls gymnastics. Would anyone like to make a motion to that effect at this time?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve all of these items. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ken. All right, we are now to item 12, other items of information. Student representative is not here tonight. School board members, any items to report?
I have a question about our student rep.
I was just telling, I've got to check with her, I'm not sure where,
Okay,
I didn't see Sophia here, so I'll
Okay.
contact her.
thanks. Sorry.
Any further items of note from school board members?
I see that Casper got mentioned, quoted in the MSBA journal. Congratulations.
He doesn't, did he know that? Yeah.
Inside front cover.
I haven't read mine yet.
You're famous in the MSBA magazines.
I
The
didn't
school
know that.
journal, right?
So you're gonna have to take it out of the trash and read it now.
Any other items of note? Hearing none, Mr. Superintendent.
Yeah, just a couple things. First of all, I had a great Veterans Day program. I attended at the high school. The other schools had one as well, and it was a wonderful program that they honored our veterans. I've been attending the C legislative meeting, and we're working on a platform. Now that we've seen the dynamics of the state legislature, we will probably not only look for some tax equalization, but also potentially some more funding for special education and for the general ed. I've also attended an AAC meeting, which is, I'm on the board for the Southeast Service Co-op, and Southeast Service Co-op, this school district is a member of, and we offer staff development opportunities for our staff, also purchasing at lower rates and things like that. I'm also working with Faribault Futures in the planning of this year's Faribault Futures class that Anne Marie Leland is a part of. So thanks, Anne, for taking part of that. And we are busy collaborating and scheming to figure out new things for you guys to do. I want to congratulate, again, we've said this over and over and over again, but the Booster Club for all their donations for the fitness center. And if you haven't had a chance yet to go visit the fitness center, please do so. It's down at the high school. Go in the office and ask somebody to give you a tour of that. They'll be more than happy to bring you down there to take a look at it. I have a PDS meeting tomorrow. That's a professional development schools with Mankato that does a lot of our research for some of the new and innovative items that we have for our school district. AVID is one of those, co-teaching models, mentor program with Pam Kennedy and some of those other programs that are, I would say, cutting edge, and you compare those to a lot of the districts in the state of Minnesota that are not doing it, we are at that point that we are doing it. And finally, I would like to finish my report by saying that I'm looking forward to working together with everybody in the community. I think that we're all wanting to move ahead and get over this hump where we can be productive for the kids. We know what we have. We know what we have to deal with, and it's going to take all of us to come together to try to figure out a solution on how to move forward. For instance, some of the programs, and I heard a gentleman talk about the orchestra program. You're right, we don't have funds for the orchestra program, but maybe there's some ideas that we can put together collaboratively to look at the orchestra program. The school won't fund it, but maybe there's some other ways that we can look at ways, innovative ways, that the district can still provide an orchestra program, if that's what it is, for these kids. And I'm interested in looking at that. I'm not interested in getting my name dragged through the mud by looking for options like this. So if we're willing on both sides of the table to look at solutions that are viable for us to help with some of these programs, that would be great. But I will say, though, that the district is not going to come up with that funding. And that funding has to be higher, it has to there has to be some other source for it. But I hope collaboratively we can think outside the box here and offer some of those programs that are on the chopping block. So with that, that is my report. All right.
Did you keep track of all the different meetings you went to present the facts on the levy?
Do I keep track of all?
Did you keep count?
Yeah. I don't know if we had ever had a hard count. I don't know. I just really enjoyed it, actually, and I know I tried to play as neutral as I could, but meeting the people and the community members within this is a great community, and we have wonderful people. They have values different on different levels, but overall the people I've talked to and the people I've visited with are are very positive. They support education, they support kids. And that's the bottom line. And if we can keep that theme going, then maybe we can find some good solutions to move forward with this district.
I just wanted to say, I think one of the real positive things that came out of this campaign for the levy was the chance that our community had to get to know you better and to see you in action. And I was very proud of that we have you on our team and that you did such a good job of presenting it as best you could in factual.
Thank you.
I agree wholeheartedly, Howard. Thank you, Tom. All right, with no further items, just a few dates to remember. On December 3rd at 5:30 is a work session at the district office. On December 10th at 7:30 a.m. Is a finance meeting at the district office. On December 10th at 5 p.m. is a policy meeting at the district office. December 17th at 4:45 p.m. It's a curriculum meeting at the district office. Finally, December 17th at 6:30 p.m. is our regular board meeting right back here at City Hall Council Chambers.
I have one addition. At our curriculum meeting this afternoon, we decided to meet on December 3rd at 4:30, is my memory serving me? Okay, the curriculum committee will be meeting with, I believe, the social studies department to talk about their upcoming curriculum examination and changes. December 3rd, 4:30, district office for the curriculum.
Okay. Todd, does that replace the December 17th meeting, or does it supplement?
It would
Replaces?
replace.
So there will not be a meeting on December 17th, as I just announced a few seconds ago. Thank you for the clarification. Okay. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is approved. We are adjourned.